From getting millions of views on videos, to being in Smash Bros, to literally being voted the most popular Pokemon at one point, Greninja's made himself well known in the Pokemon community, and for one main reason: Ash-Greninja. For those who don't know about Ash-Greninja, I'll quickly go over the story. But if you want a more in-depth explanation, I'd recommend watching one of these videos. In Pokemon XY and Pokemon XY and Z, when Ash went to the Kalos region, he ran into a Froakie who was different from other Froakies, abandoning trainers that he didn't see fit. However, Froakie saw something in Ash and decided to let him be his trainer. He would give everything he has in every battle, constantly wanting to become stronger. They would run into a ninja named Sanpei with a Greninja who would help teach Froakie how to become quicker and more ninja-like. Eventually, while helping Sanpei and his Greninja, Froakie would evolve into a Frogadier.
Right! It's evolving!
While facing the 7th gym leader, Olympia, she would say this about Frogadier.
There it is! I see it!
What? What's going on? What did you just see, Lady Olympia?
Its power will become greater and greater. It will reach new heights that no one has ever seen before. And the two of you will reach those new heights together.
Little did we know just how true this would be. Eventually, Frogadier would evolve into Greninja, but there was something different about Greninja. Ash and Greninja had a bond so strong that they could become one, changing Greninja's appearance and Ash even being able to feel damage that Greninja took. With this bond phenomenon, as it's called, Greninja became Ash's strongest Pokemon by far, being saved for last. This made Greninja quickly become a fan favorite Pokemon, but why? What was so special about Ash-Greninja compared to, say, Alon's Mega Charizard? Well, for one, this was something entirely different from Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution happens when the bond between a Pokemon and its trainer is strong enough using Mega Stones to have the Pokemon temporarily transform, changing its appearance and sometimes type. And even some stats change.
Only gives Pokemon a new, sweet design most of the time, but also buffs their stats by 100 points. On top of some extra stats, Mega Evolution can also give a Pokemon a brand new typing. Charizard finally becomes a Dragon type, Altaria becomes a Fairy type. They say that Pokemon can only Mega Evolve when they have a strong enough bond with their trainer.
But this isn't what Ash-Greninja is. Greninja doesn't even have a Mega Evolution. Instead, as Clement says,
"Given it all they've got."
Ash's power is the power of two becoming one. As long as Ash becomes one with Greninja, and as long as Greninja becomes one with Ash, they'll always be stronger for it.
Ash and Greninja have such a strong bond that they become one. Also, notice Greninja's features. When this transformation happens, notice the red and black along with his design. He starts to look more like Ash. So, bond phenomenon doesn't just change Greninja, but instead makes him one with Ash. The only other difference that I noticed Greninja have in this state is the Water Shuriken on his back. This allows him to use it differently than he normally would. The most obvious example I could think of was using Water Shuriken to block Mega Charizard's Thunder Punch in the League Finals. And I think that bond phenomenon not being Mega Evolution, but something else entirely, is a big part of what made Ash-Greninja so popular. And I can prove this. In Pokemon Journeys, the last series with Ash, he gets a Riolu. Eventually this Riolu evolves into Lucario, and Ash actually gets a Mega Stone and Lucario Mega evolves. But this isn't as loved as Ash-Greninja. Why? Because Mega Lucario is just a Mega Evolution, while Ash-Greninja is on an entirely different level. And Greninja really stands out with this because he's the only Pokemon ever to be known to have this transformation. No other Pokemon has had bond phenomenon, and for that reason, I believe that Greninja was able to make himself known. But while this might be part of the reason why Greninja is so popular, I believe there's more to this. XYZ is a very beloved series, to the point that multiple fans consider this to be the Pokemon, and part of this is the character development. The writers handled the characters very well, making Ash the most serious and most mature he's ever been.
Stronger! Stronger!
What does this have to do with Greninja though? Well, in every series, Ash has a rival. For example, Paul was his rival in Diamond and Pearl, while Trip was Ash's rival in Black and White. And in XYZ, this was also true. Throughout the series, starting when Greninja was a Frogadier, Ash runs into one of his two big rivals of the series, Sawyer. When they first battled, they did 3 separate 1v1s, and at the time, Sawyer had a Trico. As you can imagine, Ash completely destroyed Sawyer in this battle. However, this wasn't the only time that Ash would battle Sawyer, and in later battles, he would give Ash more of a challenge. Eventually, Trico would evolve into a Sceptile and was so challenging that Ash and Greninja would have to use their Bond Phenomenon state to win. During this battle, Ash's second rival, Alon, would see this unique form that Greninja had and would challenge Ash to a battle. I'll get more into Alon soon, but going back to Sawyer, when it came time to enter the Pokemon League, Ash didn't really struggle that much. That was until it came time to face Sawyer. This was the strongest that both Ash and Sawyer had been. They battled their way through the league, and now it was time for the semi-final. During this battle, both would use all 6 Pokemon on their team. They were both able to stay pretty much even throughout the battle. Ash had a bit of a lead, since when he brought Greninja out, Sceptile had already gone against Pikachu. However, Sawyer wasn't worried. With the type advantage, Sceptile used Frenzy Plant. This kept pushing Greninja back and was very dangerous.
Ash-Greninja keeps getting pushed back.
How do you handle the power of Frenzy Plant?
With no opening, and if Greninja fainted at any point, Ash would instantly lose. The match wasn't looking good for him, but they kept on and eventually found an opening. Greninja jumped high in the air, used Double Team to surround Sceptile, and then did a very powerful Water Shuriken. Sawyer could only tell Sceptile to use Leaf Storm and watch as the battle ended with Greninja the victor. Now let's look at Alon. Alon is Ash's second rival and has always beat Ash when they battled. His Charizard is very powerful, going up against Pokemon like 50% Zygarde. Yet, after beating Sawyer in the semi-final, it was time for him to face Alon one final time. This time, Ash had the advantage, since Charizard had already been in battle and Greninja has the type advantage. Both Ash Greninja and Mega Charizard gave it everything they had, but Mega Charizard was just too strong. Greninja fainted and Ash lost the Pokemon League. Both of these rivalries are also part of what I believe to have made Ash-Greninja so loved. Sawyer and Alon by far gave Ash the most competition and were both really strong rivals. They were able to truly show off just how strong Greninja is. And this scene in particular, while facing Sceptile, really gave an idea about just how in sync Ash and Greninja are to become one. And these are just his rivals. Ash has had other impressive battles with Greninja where they seem to always be stronger together. I believe that the rivalries that Ash and Greninja had with Sawyer and Alon and the battles they had are some of the most iconic moments in the series, and they truly showed what Ash Greninja truly was. While I think that Bond Phenomenon helped Greninja stand out, and Ash's rivalries with Sawyer and Alon helped show off the power of Ash Greninja, in my opinion, the biggest reason why Ash Greninja was so loved was how their characters were handled. First of all, I think that Ash Greninja would have been loved even if the concept wasn't fully fleshed out, but I don't think it'd be anywhere near where it is today. The writers had planned this out since at least when Greninja was a Frogadier because of Olympia's vision. The idea of Bond Phenomenon is simple but works. Ash and Greninja have such a strong bond that Greninja is able to transform and look more like Ash. Ash even feels the damage that Greninja takes too, but there's a major downside to this. If Ash and Greninja are not fully one, then they will both pass out. But if this idea wasn't fully thought out, then I don't see this being as loved. I still imagine it would get some attention for being unique, but I just can't see this being so loved otherwise. Look at other shows that tried out concepts but failed miserably. Velma completely changed up what Scooby-Doo was and everyone hated it. Ben 10's final with Dagon sucked despite a lot of build up to it.
Look at this, the legendary battle has been reduced to happening off screen as we talk about Vilgax again. Sounds great, but like, everything in the season didn't build up to this. Now the two most important key players in this arc, who had a lot of dedicated backstory, a lot of hype surrounding their final battle, and pretty much are the reason this whole thing is happening, are both taken out pretty quickly.
There's a lot more examples that I found online, but you get the idea. If a concept is introduced, no matter how insane it can be, if it's not well thought out, then people won't like it. But this wasn't the case for Ash-Greninja. The ability that they shared, along with how they used it in battles, was and still is some of the most impressive and popular battles we've seen in Pokemon. Ash-Greninja have always been stronger together, and they give every battle everything they have.
This is everything Greninja and I have got!
Something I want to look at is probably the weirdest part of the show, but also a very important part. When Ash challenged Wulfric to a gym battle, he had won 6 out of the 7 previous gym battles first try, so he was overconfident in both his ability and Greninja's. Yet, he lost, and this really messed with Ash. After Serena talked to him though, he came back and challenged Wulfric to a rematch. This time, Ash and Greninja weren't overconfident and were ready. And while Ash running away and getting upset about losing is out of character, this really set the stage for Ash-Greninja. When they came back, they seemed to have it more under control. Every second we got with these two was thought out. Even after getting upset, they always came back stronger and more determined. Ash knew what he was doing, saving Greninja for last. So in my opinion, the reason why Ash-Greninja is so popular boils down to a few main reasons, but the most important one was just how well thought out the idea was and how well the writers were able to execute it. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end and enjoyed the video, consider subscribing.